toughest thing I've ever done. It was also the most gratifying because these were poor kids. This would not happen to any kids except poor kids having to pass by 20 alcohol-related businesses to and from school. It was just wrong.
On the heels of that story, I wanted to talk about one of the other stories, and I was so proud to know you in this moment after the last legislative session when your bill on lunch shaming had been killed during an interesting day or so of events on the local calendar. You got everybody together and you stood up against lunch shaming. Can you talk a little bit about that? I know our client Walmart was proud to be a part of that effort.
And we were at the press
conference when you announced this. I mean, I was so proud to know you in that moment. So can you discuss that a little bit?
Sure. That bill was killed 4 times on a technicality because there are certain bills like alcohol-free zone and lunch shaming that if you ever get it before the floor, there are very few people who have the courage to vote against it. Mm-hmm. And so it was quite frankly the Tea Party that killed it 4 times on technicalities. And finally, as you well know, I was able to attach it to a Senate bill by Cokhurst. But I felt very strongly that I had an obligation and a responsibility to stand up for the least of those. And I just couldn't imagine what it must feel like to be a little kid and have your lunch taken away from you and thrown in the trash. Kids as young as 4 years old. What is the message that sends? That we don't really care about you. That we'd rather put your lunch in the trash than to give it to you. And then, once we passed that, I wanted to go to the private sector, which I did, and say, okay, now let's help these schools. So with people like Walmart, and they gave $50,000, AT&T gave $10,000, and I could go on down the line. We raised over $200,000 to give schools that didn't treat these children in this manner some relief. So I was very proud of the private sector for coming forth, and I was very pleased because, you do that to a kid, you basically diminish their self-esteem, you embarrass them in front of their peers. That is something that doesn't go away the next day or the week after that or even next month. Right. It's something that can follow them for life.
Well, Representative Giddings, not only are you not running for re-election, but also Speaker Strauss has announced that he is not going to be running for re-election. So we're going to ask you to kind of get again into the future predicting. Well, maybe not predicting, but just how do you see the speaker's race playing out? Because there have already been folks some who have announced that they are interested. Some are asking around. So how do you see the process playing out for the next Speaker of the House?
Well, I think we're going to have more people who are going to enter this race. Right now we have Phil King, we have John Zerwas, and Tan Parker. John Zerwas, whom I've worked with on appropriations, would be a heck of a great speaker. I would not want to, place odds on his chances of getting there, but he would certainly do a good job. Phil King is very interesting in that Phil King came into the legislature as a moderate Republican and somebody who tried to work with everybody. And as we've seen the Tea Party and Empower Texas and all these groups come along, this is my opinion. Phil didn't tell me that, but I've seen Phil move, more to that ultra conservative. But the one thing he has going for him one of the things is integrity. I mean, Phil's word is good. I've worked with Phil on a lot of things, including this lunch shaming, including resource officers in schools, things that, a lot of Republicans would sort of shy away from and say no to. But if I went to Phil and talked to him about what it was I was trying to do, he was independent enough to take a stand against the majority of the Republicans.
This is Deconstructing Dallas. Ryan Trimble, Shawn Williams. We're going to take a quick break and be right back with Representative Helen Giddings. Thanks for coming on. See you after the break.
Hosting Dallas. I am Shawn Williams. We are talking to the chair of the Texas Legislative Black Caucus, State Representative Helen Giddings. And Representative Giddings, I wanted to talk about one of my first memories in work. Well, my very first memory working with you is that you called me one evening October of 2016, and you told me about a project you were working on, the Texas African American History Memorial, to be built on the grounds of the Texas State Capitol. And I was not long in my job, and you talked about needing someone to work with you as far as the program, as far as media outreach. And I thought, wow, first off, I'm on the phone with Representative Helen Giddings, but I need to get past that and think about the job that I'm doing. But I can say without a doubt that has been one of the most significant events that I've had a chance to work on in my career. And it's one of the most significant things I've worked on as far as, just people of Texas and what it means for everyone. So can you talk about your role in bringing that memorial to fruition on the grounds of the state capitol and what it means to you even just when you still go by and see it now?
It is such a sense of pride. When I pass by that memorial, my eyes almost always well up with tears, as it might right now, because on the whole Capitol grounds, there was no monument, no statue or anything that spoke to African Americans and their experiences in Texas. And there were Confederate monuments and all kinds of monuments all over the place. And it was actually Al Edwards who came up with the idea of a Juneteenth monument. And once we got to thinking about it, we said, but African Americans are more than Juneteenth. We need to talk about the whole African American experience, from the first person who was black who set foot on the soil of Texas to the recent past. Obviously, we could not talk about anybody who's still alive because we have a rule in House administration that says no one who is still alive can be on a monument. So it was a project that was a long time coming. We got the Juneteenth monument. It wasn't what we wanted, but Al Edwards started that, and he will always be the father of the idea. And then the state was willing to appropriate enough money to pay for half of it, and we had to raise the money to pay for the other half. And as you can imagine, the prices keep going up as you go the longer the project goes. And so it looked like something that was just a dream. And then Sylvester Turner was elected chair of the Texas Legislative Black Caucus, and he said, Helen, we need to do this. We need to make this happen, and I need you to play a pivotal role in this. I know that you can raise money for charitable causes, and you need to put this one at the top of your list right now. And so we were able to raise the money and hired Ed Dwight out of Denver, Colorado, to design this statue that is absolutely, totally magnificent.
It's amazing.
It is amazing.
It really is.
We are so proud of it. We just don't think there's anything comparable in any state around the country. And I take so much pride in that because now we believe that it is the most visited monument on the Capitol grounds. Maybe that's because it's new, but also maybe it's because people have never had an opportunity to really look at the kind of contributions that African Americans have made in this state. And so, it's all the way from boxing with Johnson to music with Scott Joplin to Bessie Coleman in aviation and astronaut. It gives a real good glimpse of our contributions in the state of Texas.
It's an incredible monument. I got to visit the Lorraine Motel recently up in Memphis, and I in the lobby they have a not similar, but they have a monument, and it made me think back to the opening of that monument. And you had mentioned Sylvester Turner, and I know he was a key player in that. Former state representative Sylvester Turner, now mayor of Houston, Sylvester Turner. I wanted to ask you, because I know you all were desk mates for a long time. You said 20 years.
Yes.
And I know y'all's relationship has been long, and you've worked on a lot of projects together. So can you tell us a little bit about Mayor Turner and your relationship, your working relationship with him?
Well, let me tell you how it started. I was a freshman, and I was told that freshmen couldn't pass bills. And I thought, this is a great opportunity for me to get a heck of a lot of practice, and I'm going to be ready, when I become a sophomore. So I just started filing these bills, and they just started giving me these hearings. And much to my surprise, these bills started coming out of the committee. And they were going to be on the floor. And I was like, oh, my goodness, what do I do now? They weren't supposed to come out of the committee. And the first bill that came to the floor was a linked deposit bill, which Texas hadn't had at the time. And it was a bill that was intended to help minorities. You said to the bank that if they did certain things in terms of minority businesses, then the state would make more deposits in their bank and that kind of thing. So I literally stayed up all night long practicing my presentation, recording it, determining where my voice should go up and where it should fall. And I was presenting that bill, and I was waxing eloquently. It's probably the best presentation I ever made, and it probably should be, because I've never practiced one that long. And so this person walked up behind me and said, "Move approval and sit down." And I didn't know him from a bar of soap, but I did move approval. And instead of sitting down, I went over to his desk and I said, "Is there a problem? I don't think I really know you." And he said, "Well, were you trying to pass that bill, or did you want to show these people how eloquent you are?" And I said, "Well, I wanted to pass the bill, and I thought I needed to explain it." And he said, "I think what you were just about to do is to wake these people up, and you were about to lose the bill." He said, "Half these people out here are asleep. When a freshman gets to the mic, they don't pay you any attention because they don't think you're passing anything worthwhile, or you wouldn't have gotten it to this point." And so that started a friendship that lasted until he left to run for the mayor the third time. The first two times, obviously, he didn't win. And the third time, he was very successful. But we were desk mates. In the Capitol, we were suite mates. Our offices were right next door to each other. And our condos were next door to each other in the same building. So much of what I have done early on, I did in partnership with Sylvester Turner. Many people don't know until today that there's an urban institute at the University of Texas that's set up specifically to study issues that have to do with African Americans in the state of Texas. And each year they're supposed to put out a publication, the state of African Americans in Texas, as it relates to education, as it relates to economic development, and that kind of thing. It's a deal that Sylvester Turner and I worked out. We also worked out a deal where there would be $2 million endowed chairs in the Department of Black Studies. And those were great partnerships because I'm very good at concepts. Not quite as good in my mind as negotiating. So Sylvester would say, "Okay, Helen, so, you say we need this institute. Yes, this needs to be part of what we leave behind. This needs to be a part of our legacy. This needs to be a part of what we think is going to be a boost to the Texas Legislative Black Caucus in the future." So he said, "Okay, put it down, show me what it looks like, whatever." So I put my concept down, what it looked like, how much money it was going to take, and whatever. Passed it off to Turner, and he said, "Okay, I'll go meet, see if I can work this out." So he came back and he said, "I worked it out.